Hello, everybody. This is Martin Winslow, and today I've got with me Chad Hodges. And this is the Canaan STL podcast where we connect you to what matters most, to God, people, and purpose. Chad Hodges is our Director of Missions for the Jefferson Baptist Association. He's also a member here at Canaan Baptist Church, and he is in here with us today. And Chad, it's really good to have you in the studio. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Thanks for asking me to be a part.
Absolutely. Now, have you been on a radio show before?
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
It's actually been 20 years ago or more.
Okay.
But yeah, I co-hosted a radio show a number of years ago. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, as I mentioned, Chad is the Director of Missions for the Jefferson Baptist Association, and where Canaan is located really on the river, we're partners with both associations, with the St. Louis Metro, which we're actually on the St. Louis side, but also with the Jefferson Baptist Association. And so we get to work with you. And Chad, why don't you just tell our listeners, I mean, some people here know you, you've got family here, and you've been around the area for a long time, but why don't you just tell us a little bit about your family, and who you are?
Okay, well, that's a long short question and a long answer to a short question.
Peanut shell it, right?
And nutshell it. Yeah. Well, I'm Chad. There you go. That's grew up in this area. We're Jefferson County people. Grew up in DeSoto, and my wife grew up here in Arnold. And I tell people all the time, if you're from Arnold or this area, you understand what I'm about to say. I married my LA girl from Lower Arnold.
There you go.
And so we actually met here at Canaan. When I was on staff here in 1994-ish, 1994, 95, I was a youth pastor here at Canaan Baptist, and I won't tell that part of the story. I was here a year, almost exactly a year.
It's a long tenure.
Yeah. I won't tell part of the story. I'm going to tell part of that story. We're going to leave that part out because I don't want to dig into it. But anyway, we met while I was on staff here, and after I resigned, we started dating and got married in 1996. So we've been married almost 26 years, almost 27. Got 4 kids, and they're all old, 23 to 17. And
what are the names of the kids?
So we have Nate, Abby, Rebecca, Noah, and Rebecca. I don't want to get them in proper order. They like born order things.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, good. And you were a pastor before you were the Director of Missions. So where did you pastor? How long were you there? Tell us a little bit about you mentioned Canaan early on in your ministry, but kind of walk us through that progression a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the fun part about that is this June, actually, I celebrate 30 years in ministry. I started in 1992 as a summer missionary for Jefferson Baptist Association, as a matter of fact. And one of my first assignments was to be the youth minister at Harmony Baptist Church in House Springs. Okay. Ended up staying beyond the summer into probably late December, and then just kind of did some internships and some other stuff. And actually, Canaan was the first non-internship ministry I had, or non-summer ministry I had coming while I was in college. And then did student ministry until 2000. Actually was employed at Jefferson Baptist Association from 98 to 2000 doing youth ministry there, and then went to pastor Pilgrim's Rest Baptist Church in the Dittmer Ware area. Okay. We pastored there 8.5 years. And then in mid-2008, we headed out to Wright City, which is just west of Wentzville. Okay. And we pastored there for about 11.5 years before coming back to Jefferson County.
West of Wentzville now. Is that still in the JBA?
No.
I was going to say.
Yeah, that was my foreign mission years.
Gotcha.
That's what people say. I was sent as a foreign missionary from Jefferson County to Warren County.
Yeah. So you came back to this area and now took over. And what is a director of missions? People hear that. When you decided you were going to transition out of the pastor into director, what does a director of missions do? And kind of explain that as it relates to the 40-some churches in the JBA. Yeah. Kind of tell, because most people probably don't know.
Yeah. Kind of depends on who you talk to, but here's how I view my job and what I do at Jefferson Association is my primary responsibility is to serve pastors, almost a pastor to pastor kind of a deal. Mm-hmm. The guy that our lead pastors and staff can count on if they just need some prayer support, some help, some advice, some counseling, just somebody to bounce some things off of. So I spend a lot of my days just communicating with our pastors and staff, doing lunch meetings and just trying to encourage those guys. And then really we have 38 churches in our association. Primary role there is just church strength. We assist with mission projects and things of that sort, developing partnerships. I'm sure we'll talk about Montana and some of the other things we've got going on. Church planting will be part of what we do. Right now, we're not planting any churches. We don't have any on the horizon, but we're always on the lookout for that kind of thing. But church health is really the driving force behind what we do every day. And healthy churches begin with healthy pastors.
Sure.
Healthy pastors can identify healthy leaders, and healthy leaders can help create healthy churches. And so that's kind of the ebb and flow of what we do every day, is just trying to develop that.
Sure. And you help churches, like, let's say a church was in a rural community that kind of began to die over years, and maybe just people moved out of the area or whatever, and there was a building there. The church decided to close down. A lot of times they'll leave that to the association, and then you guys will, you'll have to make decisions on property and different things like that. You might, sell it and help, do mission work with that. You have to make all kinds of decisions, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, tell us about some of those, like day-to-day stuff,
Yeah, I was just telling my wife, Joanne, the other day, I was kind of having one of those moments, waking up in the morning and just realizing you have a lot of things going on. And, I've been a pastor for 30 years. I'm not a businessman. I don't do property acquisitions and sales. They didn't teach you that in seminary.
Right.
We've had several situations in just the 3 years I've been back here in Jefferson County where churches have closed and left us a building. What are we going to do with that? How do we deal with the transfer of that property? How do we deal with the carrying costs of that property? Yeah. When there's a title question, what do we have to do and deal with all that stuff? And so those are complicated decisions. Yeah. I'm grateful we have guys on our team that are more experienced than that, or we have some attorneys that we can deal with. But that's a complicated part, because that's where the more business oriented decisions come in, where you're thinking about money. You're thinking about, should we sell this? Should we keep it? Is there strategy involved in keeping it? Answering all those questions. If we sell it, what do we do with the money?
Yeah.
And the answer to that question is pretty simple. We just reinvest it back into our churches to help develop that health. We've had 3 churches close in the 3 years I've been here, and there are several more that could be knocking on that door. And so we're trying to figure out how do we stem that tide of church closure? Yeah. How do we get them to ask the right questions before it's too late?
Well, and people hear that, I think, a lot of times, and they can be fearful. Oh man, churches are closing. Well, yeah, but maybe it was in a community where the community kind of died. You sell the property, you reinvest that into a church plant somewhere else in the JBA or whatever, and so it's not like that's the end of the world or that's the end of the church.
Right.
Maybe just in that area, that specific area, and then also you guys, you counsel on like revitalizing churches, and there's all kinds of things you can do in those situations.
Right. And the trick is getting the church to, because, I don't have any authority over a church, so I can't go into a church and say, hey, look, you're struggling. Here's why you're struggling. Let me tell you how to fix it.
Right.
If they don't invite me in, then I can't go and help. So it's helping them learn on their own how to ask the right questions and where to reach out to for help.
Yeah.
I'm just one of the options in the toolbox, so to speak. If they reach out to me, I've got several tools and several things that we can use to help them. If I don't know that I'm the one to help them, we've got other places here in Missouri. We've got the Resound Network with the Missouri Baptist Convention. We've got the Replant Group with North American Mission Board. There's a lot of resources out there. It's just getting the churches to ask the right questions of, why aren't we growing? What's our community? How's it changed? Why haven't we changed like the community? What are we doing that we need to do different? And a lot of those things are not, they tend to be knee-jerk. Well, if we had different music, or if we had a younger pastor, or if we had this, we had that. And it really isn't those things. It's about being specific about your particular mission.
Yeah.
All of us as church, all of us as Christians have the Great Commission as our mission, to make disciples, develop disciples, to teach and to grow, right? But every local community, every church has kind of a variation of that idea of the Great Commission. Matthew 28 is what we know of the Great Commission, go and make disciples of all nations. We know that. But there's a version of the Great Commission given in every one of the Gospels that's a little bit different because I think it's a little different in every community where you come to. Yeah, the goal is to make disciples, but how are we going to do that specifically at this local church? And to become kind of mission driven. And so that's the bigger question, is how do we get our churches to focus on the mission that God has given them and to really just own it?
Yeah, that's great. And I knew the first time I met you, I was like, this guy is a missions guy. And that got me really excited. And why don't you tell like our listeners some of the stuff right now that you're excited about as it relates to like the JBA, the things the JBA are into, the work, the partnerships, those kind of things, because a lot of people may not know, the cool things that are on the horizon and already going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the big thing we've got going on really that is the partnership we've just forged in Montana. We've adopted actually the city of Bozeman, Montana. Right now we're working specifically with a new church plant, actually replant there, called the Church at Four Corners. We took a group back in April. There actually last year I went 4 times. You and Daniel and a couple of Justin and another one of our other pastors went with me last October, just to help kind of formalize that partnership. This April we took five of us out there and we began helping them with a major remodel project they're doing on their church building. And then at the end of July, we're taking 21 more back out there, representing about 5 different churches on this trip to help them finish, we hope, the remodel project. Yeah. So that's an exciting partnership. And the reason that's exciting isn't just the construction part, but Bozeman, Montana is pretty central.
Okay.
And the lead pastor at the Church of Four Corners also is the church planting strategist for the state of Montana. And he really is dreaming of a church planting movement to be centered out of Bozeman. They have at least one family I know, if it's not 2, that are going to be church planting residents with that church for the next year. And so they'll be working with Church of the Four Corners over the next year, learning all the ins and outs of church planting and doing that sort of thing. And then the goal is in a year to send both those guys out somewhere in Montana to plant. And one of them may be in Bozeman. I know they've identified another area in Bozeman where to plant a church, just to reach people with the gospel. So it's really exciting to be on the ground level of this and to see it kind of flourish. And when you're on ground level mission type stuff like this, when you go out on a trip, things are pretty flexible.
Sure.
The plan you had when you leave may not be the plan you have when you get there.
Right.
And
sounds like every mission trip I've ever been on.
Right. And sometimes it can get frustrating for people on the outside because when you get there and plans change, the default position then is to prayer walk. And prayer walking is not a throwaway activity. Prayer walking is foundational to what we're doing in Bozeman. And so if we get a day or two where, okay, we're not doing construction, but we're going to go prayer walk, we haven't just lost the day.
Right.
We've really redeemed the day, getting to pray in the communities and meet people and just engage just through prayer and that spiritual work that's bigger than construction and all that stuff. So it's pretty exciting. And then, we're partnering with you guys here in Fairmont City, trying to work with that and trying to connect several of our churches into that partnership. And slowly but surely, we'll think about developing some international partnerships. With COVID and everything, we put everything on hold. Sure. And so now we're exploring what that looks like to move internationally. And just trying to feel the waters out.
I love what you said. The prayer walking is not a throwaway activity. That's the power of God, right, that you're calling on. I specifically remember Darren Casper and I were walking through Fairmont City, and we had a group of people, and we're prayer walking. And I'm prayer walking with another pastor that's from East St. Louis. And interestingly enough, we all kind of came back together, and Darren said, I remember when we were prayer walking here initially, and we were praying for a pastor to come. And now that part's been answered, and Mario Ramirez and his family are coming. And now he said the prayer walking needs to be that God will just build his church, through Mario. But he also talked about the Storyline guys coming from Kentucky, their sending church sent them here. And he said there were certain streets that we were praying on, and now there's a church on that. So we believe that, right? Yeah. We can do that anywhere, but in those places in Bozeman or wherever we're at, we need to believe and trust God for those answers to prayer, and he's doing it all over the place.
And that's the amazing part about it. We had, in my last pastorate, I was heavily involved in the association, and our association had a partnership in Panama. And I went to Panama 4 or 5 times. And the first probably 3 times, it was almost all prayer walking. We would prayer walk the same streets over and over and over and over and over again, just praying for God to do a major work in this heavily Catholic area. In fact, on one of the trips, we had the local Catholic priest going behind us into every house we went into and just saying, "Hey, don't follow along. Don't listen.
Is that right?
Do whatever they were saying." And so that hindered some of the evangelism events we were doing. But then as we got into year 3 and in year 4, we started seeing those churches begin to thrive. They called a new pastor. They were reaching people. They were seeing their first baptisms. And we were able to go back to all those people that went on those initial trips with us and say, listen, this is happening because you prayed. And we really just bathed this area in prayer. And we asked God to do something big here. And so now as it's happening, that foundation of prayer is what set it all up. And so that's what we're praying for in Bozeman. When we have those chances to go out and prayer walk or Fairmont City, to just bathe that area in prayer, this is God's work. We're always reminded that it's the Lord who brings the increase.
That's right.
We're just the laborers in the field, and the best labor we can give is to pray and seek the Lord. So,
well, and he gets all the credit, right? Like you said, we cast out the seed, we might water the seed, we're going to prayer walk, but at the end of the day, if anything good happens, if there's any increase, we give all the glory to Jesus.
Right.
So, well, praise God, man. Listen, we are so thrilled that you and your family are a part of Canaan. We're so thrilled that you're the director of missions and that we get to work closely with you and be a part of all God's doing, not just in the JBA, but in places like Bozeman and, of course, Fairmont City. And, man, we're looking forward to a lot more partnership for the kingdom of God. Canaan has, we partner with the JBA, and one of the things that the churches within the Jefferson Baptist Association do is each one of them give to make those missional opportunities possible. And so it's important that we give to the JBA and that we, are sending money. And that doesn't just help you and your family live, right? That's pushing forward the mission of God. That's helping all the churches. That's helping places like Fairmont City. All that goes together. And so we're grateful for all the work that you're doing, brother.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm grateful for your partnership. And I think you hit that right. When I stand in front of our churches, I'm able to say, listen, because you guys give, so far this year in the training events we've done for pastors, we've had over 120 pastors involved in these training events.
Wow.
We're able to do those free or very little cost because our 38 churches give to support that.
Yep.
We're sending 26 people to Montana this year. Our association helps underwrite some of the costs because our churches give to that. We give a little bit every month to help with Fairmont City because our churches give. And so we're able to do all those things because in partnership, our churches give together. And Canaan's one of those. Super thankful for that partnership and super thankful for the opportunities it provides our association to engage.
Absolutely, brother. Well, God bless you and your family. Thanks for joining us today on Canaan STL Podcast. And everybody, we'll be talking to you next week. God bless.